How's it going? If you are new, my name's Thomas. I am supposed to be here on the stage speaking with you. It's September 2nd, and it feels like it outside. It's terrible. And because it's September and because it's fall, of course, it means half sweet, extra shot of espresso, pumpkin spice latte. That's what this is right here, actually. And my sister-in-law, my wife's a twin, and her twin sister, my sister-in-law, she had an Instagram post the other day. She's like, deal with it, summer's dead. In my head, I was like, no, now you are dead to me. I'm not really a fall person. I'm more of a summer, hot, change your underwear at the end of the day kind of guy. I love the heat. I love the humidity. And you hear the thing at the project too, fall means it's like students start coming back. We never know what long weekends like here because there's still a lot of people who are like, let's get one last weekend of camping in before school starts and real life starts. And the thing with Edmonton, if you've just moved to the city, welcome to the most irritating weather patterns you will ever experience in your life. It will be like super hot one morning and then it'll be snowing by the night time. And that's the way it is. It has snowed in every single month in Edmonton before. So expect it all times. And so what we did, this is kind of like a bit of a hump Sunday. We just finished series last week. And we're starting a series next week. And it's called this, If You Want to Screw Up Your Life. That starts next week. Pretty pumped about it. Because if you're looking to screw up your life, you'll love the series. And today, though, I wanted to do something a little bit different. I had a bit of an idea. I was thinking about what it's like to transition into a new season, going from like summer into, or even just August into September. We're going into the actual thing. Guys, you're going to have to take over because this thing, I want to throw it. Out of love, not anger. I was looking through going, what can we do when it comes to transitioning seasons? Because to be honest, September, even though sometimes you're working full time or you're going back to school or going to school for the first time or you left a new city, you left in a city, you're coming to a new city, there's always this really, really weird time where you're like, how do I like kind of bury the summer and start brand new? And so I decided to do this thing called a Swiss Army Knife Sunday, where I am going to literally give you a litany of very practical things on how to transition well into the next season and to maximize your time over the next year. Now, here's the thing. I'm not like a guru or anything like that, and hopefully you never feel like I come across that way. I'm 34. I've been married for over a decade. I have 3 kids. I'm in a career that I absolutely love. I own my own home, and for the most part, I've looked back and go, wow, like God has been really faithful, and I know a lot of it has been God, and a lot of it has been because I've made very specific decisions as well. And I don't think I have it all done. I don't ever say that I've landed. I honestly, I feel like I'm constantly always learning, constantly landing, often in the wrong place, and then learning to go the other way. So I thought, why don't I just spend a Sunday with you between August and September, between summer and fall, and go, what are some really practical tips I can give you? When it comes to your life, when it comes to your own life, when it comes to your relationships with other people, and it comes to your relationship with the next season and disappointments from the last. How do we walk through it? Is it okay if I do that today? You don't have a choice. We're going to do it anyways. There is this verse in Ephesians chapter 5, and it says this. It's one of those verses that have stuck with me since the first time I read it. And I encourage you, if you haven't read this already, if you don't have a Bible, we will get you a Bible. If you've never read one, take it from the person beside you, ask them where to find this, and then tattoo it to yourself. But it says this, be very careful then how you live, not as unwise, but as wise, making the most of every opportunity because the days are evil. Therefore, do not be foolish, but understand what the Lord's will is. Now, this whole passage, this guy named Paul who writes this book to this church is telling them what it looks like to actually live a good life, a Christian life, and a life of wisdom. And you need to know that it is just as spiritual as being here on Sunday to really think practically about the decisions you make in your everyday life, the relationships you have, how you care for yourself, It's very important. God cares about that stuff. And so that's why we're going to get into it. So I'm going to try to go through this stuff pretty fast because honestly, there's a limited amount of time. And I wrote just tons of stuff down, okay? The first thing I want to actually talk about is the idea of self-care. Now, the reason why I start with this, because some people are like, well, Christian thing, isn't it supposed to be serve others? And you're totally right. But if you are unhealthy, I don't care who you are, all you're going to do is spew unhealth to other people. If you are not healthy, then you can't tell anyone. It's like someone will be like, hey, I'm lost, but I'll help you find your way home. Idiot. No, you got to make sure that you are healthy. You got to make sure that you're caring for yourself because then you won't know how to care for someone else. So can I give you some practical advice that I found I'm learning myself. I'm introducing for the first time in this fall for a few things and things I've just learned over the years. And one of the things that, this whole last month, we were talking about our whole spiritual life. If you haven't been here, this past August was called the Jesus Way. And we actually launched an online resource for every single person who wants to learn how to either read the Bible or pray, get involved in community. And it's got devotionals, it's got teaching, it's got video, it's got audio, it's got resources and books you can connect to. We want to help you grow. And so I don't want to spend tons of time because we've just done this last month. But there's a few things I do want to highlight. When I look back at my life, I honestly can say that seriously, what has made a huge difference is the fact that I actually prayed and read my Bible. I know a lot of people are like, well, of course you got to do that. You're a Christian. But I find 80% of people who come to church don't. Just don't read it or don't prioritize it. I have noticed in my life when I prioritize it and when I don't prioritize it. I'm not asking you to read the whole thing at once. I even tell people I'm not a huge believer in 1-year reading plans. I mean, if you do it, that's great, but I'm not a huge believer in it. I don't think it's the best way to read your Bible and to learn how to do it. Because it's the worst when you get on day 5 and you're like, man, I am 5 days behind, right? And so all you're doing is reading for the plan, right? And then 3 months down the road, you're like, screw it, burn the Bible and throw it away, and that's why I don't think it's really healthy. It's not a great way to read it. I tell people, there's a great place to start. I mean, if you've never read your Bible, go to this book called John. It's one of the testimonies of Jesus' life and words, and it's easy to read. Or Mark, he's pretty ADD when he writes it, so you always say and instantly, and then suddenly. And so it's if you're ADD-ish, you'll love Mark, and he just gets right to the point. He skips over the birth story. He's like, yeah, he was born, obviously, he's an adult, right? Get over it. And so he kind of gets into it, right? And I would say this, just start reading, and if something just catches you, just stay there. It's taken me sometimes months to get through one book. Sometimes it's taken me weeks to get through one chapter. Because if I don't understand it, I'm not going to move on. I want to get as much out of it. And there's really good helps for you to do that. But just start reading. When it comes to praying, just start praying. I don't know how to pray. That's a great place for you to start. You don't need a class to start praying. You just need to have a time alone where you're just separated from everything else and just be honest with what's in your life. And I often say sometimes the best prayers have 0 words involved. And it's just you being honest with God and being there and frustrated and angry and happy and joyful, whatever it is, and be there. But I look back and I see that since I've actively pursued praying and reading my Bible, I've noticed huge difference when it comes to peace in my life, when it comes to even just wisdom or having to make large decisions. And also just the idea of going, I feel okay, maybe my whole life is not in my hands, but that someone actually does care about me, okay? Also, I also say it's good to try to actively pursue the answer to someone else's prayers. And what I mean by that is this, is we often pray for a lot of things. People praying for a lot of things. There's a lot of stuff going on in this city. We just did the single parents night. That there's single parents always hoping for help. And one of the things I've recognized over life is that if I can actively be the answer to someone else's prayer, I'm going to be that. I'm going to do that. Often, even Jesus said once, he's like, listen, if someone shows up to you and they're hungry and they are naked and you've got food and clothing and you don't give it, what good is that? He's like, your faith should translate into something where you do something for that need. And so, I think that's something that's super healthy to do, and it keeps you grounded and it helps you remember that you are part of a very big fabric in life. So do it. The other thing I would say about self-care is from spiritual is also this: seek help if you need it. Now, I found this picture. You would be surprised how many pictures there are of hands coming out of things. There's 80 pictures of this, just different water, different hands. I always who takes this photo? It's either a friend who's legitimately drowning Or you're telling someone, just go in the water. Make it look like you really need my help. Anyways, I had to put it up there. There's lots up there. Really interesting statistic, okay? Young people aged 15 to 24 are more likely to experience mental illness or substance abuse disorders than any other age group. The reality is that many of you in this room are not doing okay. And you need to know that it's okay to not be okay. That if you're not doing well, if you're struggling, reach out for some help. This fall, your life will not get easier the more you avoid it. You need to seek help. You need to do something about it. I always tell, and maybe you've heard me if you've been here long enough, I say pretty often, if you're 23 years old and you've not seen a counselor, you're not doing life right. You know, some people are like, well, I don't go to a doctor. Well, that's a problem too, by the way. I haven't seen a dentist since I was 18, right? And you know what, just go for a full checkup, okay? And if you've not seen a counselor by the age of 23, I always say this, if you got a hurt or something in your life that you've not dealt with, everything else in your life matures except that. And you kind of just become a grown-up baby in those places. That whenever that hurt gets touched on, it's almost like you go right back to it. And so unless you go see someone who can help you untangle some of those knots, they will constantly trip you up. See someone. Seek some help. If you're a student, especially at the U of A, I don't know about the other campuses, that's something I am finding out as this weeks go on, but I know at the U of A, they provide free counseling. And so take advantage of it. Do what you can. If you are someone and you're going to school and you're a little lost, get a tutor, yo. Some of you need it. And this may seem like, okay, like this seems like pretty obvious. I don't think it is for a lot of people. A lot of people have a lot of pride. They feel like you got to figure it out. Take time to get a tutor. The reason why it is because if you're stressing about something you don't understand, you're beating yourself up for something that's totally unfair. You don't know how to do it. That's why, there's I marry couples, and one of the nicest things I tell them at the beginning is this, at the counseling, you guys are going to be very bad at marriage. And they're like, what? I'm like, yeah, you're going to suck at marriage. You're going to be terrible at it. What do you mean? It's like, well, you've never done it before. So expect to be bad at it, but ask for help. Same with this, ask for help. And, another way you can do this too is some of you, you need a mentor, or you need someone in your life who's inspiring you, pushing you forward. We are a generation with an endless amount of knowledge at our fingertips. You can find anything you want out. We've never had this much access to information ever. There's so much, but you know what we lack? A boatload of wisdom. Those are two different things. You met those people, they know the right answer, but their lives are like, do you really know the right answer? Because you're living totally opposite of it, right? You're telling me not to do it, but you're doing it, right? And that's kind of where we lack. I honestly think that our generation and the next are missing a lot of wisdom, a lot of people to help. And so I always say, and I've done this in my life too, and I do it again about every 6 months to every year. And right now I'm in the middle of actually praying for someone again who just, I find inspires me in a certain area of my life where I can just open my life up a little bit more and say, man, you rule at this, and I'm terrible at it. Would you mind just, if I pay for your coffee, it'll be Timmy's, of course, it won't be Starbucks. And just, I don't tell them that right away though. And let's chat a bit about it. Do it. It's worthwhile. This is a part of self-care because often we feel like at this age that we got to have it all together. And how many of you would be honest enough to admit that you don't have it all together? There are people who've gone before you. And so allow them to kind of pave the way for you. Ask those questions. So there's the seek some help if you need it. And then also learn to prioritize. This has made a huge difference for me. What's the most important thing you need to do this week? What's the most important thing you need to do this month? Prioritize. Do it. Schedule it. Make sure that's happening. Get a planner. Get an app. Get something. Write it on your mirror. Do whatever you can. I use an app. And I also use an actual physical planner with paper. And you write with a pen. Or I do pencil, but you do that. Or I don't know if you do it. It seems archaic, but I do it. I actually write it in, and then I put it in my phone. I just want to remember it, and I do it. It's been hugely helpful. And I'll say this, plan to procrastinate. This is weird. People don't know this, but you actually should plan to procrastinate. It's called pre-procrastination. It is. You'd be like, oh, I know myself. I'm going to wait till last minute, right? And so actual schedule time for you to actively avoid all the pressure that you're feeling. You know, I mean, don't do it like the minute before, right? But plan it in your week going, that's going to be a moment where I literally am not going to care. I'm just not going to do that. And plan for it and do it. Also, let's talk a bit about your phone. This to me actually is one of the biggest lessons I've learned this year especially. So last December, I actually came off Instagram because I just didn't care about Instagram. And then I got actively, was on Twitter, I was on Facebook, whatever. And then in April, I just decided to just stop. Just for myself, I've got no moral ethic. I just decided I'm just going to stop for a bit. And what was amazing was the amount of clarity I got in my thinking. And I felt like even in my prayer life and reading and things like that, I felt like I understood things better. I felt like I had more energy. I felt like I could sleep at night. I felt like I noticed and was more aware of things going on around me. Here's something that you may not know, that the way that they design apps is meant to be a lot like a slot machine. You notice on Facebook, you're always pulling down, or on Instagram, it's the same motion as a lottery machine. They've specifically designed it that way. There's a feedback loop they want you to get. But here's the thing, they actually don't want your best time, they want your boredom. If they can own your boredom, they own you. And I actually think we need to learn to be bored again. Here's an interesting thing from, I heard that hand clap, I'll acknowledge it. No? Okay. So results from a separate study from the University of Pittsburgh School of Medicine show that the more time young adults spent on social media, the more likely they were to have problems sleeping and report symptoms of depression. Over and over and over again, this is one stat of hundreds I could find you that say the exact same thing. You know, the reason why is this is because you have so much pressure. You got so many things going on in your life. You got so many decisions. You got so much busyness in your life. You've got tons going on. And then what happens is that you don't give your brain and your body a break because you move right to social media thinking it's boredom, thinking it's your break. But all you're doing is accessing information, getting more info, trying to realize, am I getting likes? Am I doing this? Am I responding? Is there FOMO? What is going on? And you actually don't give yourself a break. And here's the thing, you mentally and physically, your bodies cannot handle that. And what happens is that your body ends up going into this weird, depressive status where you don't notice it, but it's happening because you burned yourself out. And you need to hear when I say this. I have nothing against social media or technology. If you knew me, I'm actually a huge geek, and I love tech. But I've realized that if I don't give myself a break, I'm listening to so many voices, and I'm not noticing the most important ones in my life. And if you don't get a handle on this, it will handle you all the way home. And so, can I encourage you? Put your phone down. Find a way. Whether it's at night, and I'd say this, don't keep your phone on at night, turn it off. If someone's calling you at 3 a.m, it's probably not good. What do you mean by that? Is nothing good happens after 11 o'clock at night, even on your phone. Turn it off. Decide to do it. Put your phone somewhere. You know, most people when they vacation, they just escape. And I'd encourage you to reclaim what's called Sabbath. And what I mean by Sabbath is it's a biblical term, and the Bible, it says that we were created in 6 days and God rested, and he wants us to do the same thing. The reason why is because we need to remind ourselves that we're not humans doing, we're human beings, and Sabbath is meant to way to restore order in our life. And I honestly think that we need a Sabbath from technology often and from social media and phones to restore our own dignity and how we view ourselves and how God views us. And so can I encourage you to just at least think about that challenge? not going to tell you to do it, but I'm going to encourage you to think through it. It made a difference to me. And this leads me to the next thing. Read a freaking book. Turn off Netflix, turn off your phone at night, and read a book. Here's what Proverbs says. My child, listen to what I say and treasure my commands. Tune your ears to wisdom and concentrate on understanding. Search for them as you would for silver. Seek them like hidden treasures. Then you will understand what it means to fear the Lord, and you will gain knowledge of God. Here's the thing. I will be brutally honest with you. Most of the issues that you have in life can be solved by a book, if you read it. You go to any sort of, and I've read a lot of leadership books, read a lot of organizational books. I read a lot. I used to never, but I really, really ramped up reading a number of years ago, and I read a lot. And one of the things that they always say is the number one simplest and easiest way to learn is to read a book. Read something. If you're like, I'd never read before, find something that you're interested in. It doesn't even have to be anything important. Just start reading. Get in the habit. And so I'd say this, create a budget for yourself to read. And then I would say, set a reading plan for yourself. I'm going to read this one book in the next 4 months. It doesn't have to be fast. If you've never read a book, that's one book more than you probably read last year. Just read something. If you need recommendations, I'm actually going to put some recommendations up on our social media throughout this week of just different areas and different things you want to read. But I always say this, if you want to find a really good book, find a book you already really like and see who they cite. It's a great way of learning and discovering new authors and new things. And I do this. So I read professionally. So I have one book I read professionally. I read one book that is kind of like growing me as a human being and spiritually. And I read one book recreationally. Sometimes it's like the dumbest book, but it just makes me laugh. And it's a bit of a guilty pleasure. And so I just do that. And it keeps me thinking creatively. So do that, okay? Read. If there's anything I can say, just read a book. Honestly, I literally think reading can change people's lives. So read a book. Next, finances. Get your finances ordered, yo. Before you get into the next season, it'd be good for you to take a bit of time and know where you're at financially. You get to know what you owe. And you're like, no, because I just got student loans, and that became abundantly clear what I owe. And you're like, I've got $5, so it's pretty easy. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I just a firm believer that if you don't manage your money, it will manage you. And money is like water. If you don't care for it, it's like finding water in your basement. It ruins everything. Watch over it. The Bible says this, no one can serve two masters, for you will hate one and love the other. You'll be devoted to one and despise the other. You cannot serve God and be enslaved to money. Now, the reason why he brings up money in this is because one of our biggest concerns is ourselves. And it takes money to run things and to have things and to do things. Manage your money. So I'd say this, I always follow this very simple plan. Give, save, live. Find out what you give off the top. Find out how much you're saving and what you need to live on and do it that way. If you've got debts, pay your debts off. If you cannot pay off your credit card at the end of the month, you can't afford that item. The biggest piece of financial advice I can give you is this. If you spend more than you bring in, you're bad with money. It's as simple as it is. And you'd be like, well, I've got debts, I got things. Yeah, care for those things. Find help to get you out of those situations. Do whatever you can to work yourself out of it, because here's the thing. This is not the age where you want to grow into marriage, grow into getting home, grow into all these things in your career and just overloading yourself with debt. If you can't manage your money, find someone who can help you manage your money. Because at the point, it goes from, like I said, you can either manage you or you can manage it, and it'll either bring a lot of freedom to your life or it will enslave you. Okay? And I'd say this also, spend money on experiences, not so much on things. It's much more worth it. Yeah, sure. Spend money on experiences more than you spend money on things. Things are very momentary. Experiences build into your life, okay? Makes a huge difference. And you're like, good, I'm booking a flight to Maui. I can't afford it, but you told me it's experiences, right? Also, I'd say this, book face-to-face time with someone that cares about you and you care about them. And I mean that word book. Not about going to a movie. It's not about just sitting beside someone, but actually like doing something with someone face-to-face, at least once a week. Book that time. You are meant to see people and other faces and expressions. Your phone is not connection, it's just convenience. You need to be inconvenienced for connection. And so make sure you budget that into your weekly schedule. Is that face-to-face time with someone. And also give yourself once a month. I already talked about this, serve somewhere if you can. And lastly, have fun. Plan fun into your life. If you don't look like this at least once a month, you're doing life wrong. Go buy tons of candy, splurge with your friends, and have fun. You need to celebrate. If not, then you'll just be sourpuss the entire time. So make sure you plan fun. Secondly, self-care. I know I literally could probably spend a whole night on just one of these things. So that's going fast. Second thing is relationships. Let's talk about your relationships. I honestly think that the decisions you make and the relationships you have will have the greatest impact on your life. Greatest. I don't care who you are and how old you are. If you disagree with me, you crazy, not me. So let me ask you, who in your life makes you better? Tell them. Before you get into the fall, tell them. Who in your life makes things harder? Tell them too. No, adjust it. This has been key for me accidentally when I was a teenager, and then I learned over a while that this is a good accident. Who you spend the best of your time will determine who you become. Hands down, show me your friends and I'll show you your future. It's the easy way of finding out who you want to be is who you hang out with. Your attitude, your demeanor, your decisions are all affected by the people you surround yourself with and you give the best of your time with. And I mean best of your time, because sometimes you're like working with people and you're like, I can't help that. No, I mean the best of your time. The people you open your life with, that you share the recreational time. This is what I mean. So what do you want to be like when you hit January? Who do you want to be? Do your relationships, the ones closest to you, reflect that? Or are they going to hinder you from that? I can't say this enough. Who you spend the best of your time with will determine who you become. I don't have it up here. There's this verse in Proverbs. It's this like a book of wisdom in the Bible. And he says this, basically you hang out with wise people, you become wise. You become a companion of fools and you suffer harm. Wise people understand their decisions are connected with other decisions in other people's lives. Hang out with those people. Foolish people are the people who don't see their decisions as connected. And out of adolescence, out of teenagers, when you move on to young adult life, you're supposed to begin to see that, decisions I do make do affect my life and other people around me. But there's a lot of people who don't see it that way. And it doesn't say you become a fool. It says you can suffer harm. I relate it to this. It's the same as being in the car with a drunk driver. You may not be the drunk person driving, but you definitely will get hurt. Who's driving your car in your life? Are your friends wise? Who do you want to be at? Who do you want to be when you hit January? Do your friends reflect that? The person you're dating, do they reflect that? If you're married, well, it's too late. Should have thought about that one. No, I was joking. Let's move on to dating. A lot of people, I don't know if you're interested in dating, but here's something about dating. Be the right person before worrying about finding the right person. Because you tracked who you are. And so if you want to have a really healthy relationship, you got to be healthy, yo. There's this verse in 1 Corinthians. Everyone loves it. They read it like at all their weddings. Love is patient, and it's kind, and it's not jealous or boastful or proud. It's beautiful. It's awesome. It is, it's the word of God. I'm not making fun of it. It's great, but everyone loves that, and they're wanting that love. But here's the question. Are you that first? Are you patient? Are you kind? Are you jealous or boastful or proud or rude? Do you demand your own way? Are you irritable? Some of your emails show me that you are. Do you keep a record of being wrong? Do you rejoice about injustice or justice? Do you lose faith? Are you hopeful? Do you endure through circumstances? Because that's your responsibility, not theirs. It's not telling you what you should look for. Paul's not like, by the way, this is who your mate should do. No, he's talking to a church that is in such disrepair and disunity. He's telling them, guys, this is what love is, but that means you got to be this. So are you this first? I'm going to say something to you that most people disagree with me with, but it's one of the number one things people come back and tell me, I wish I would have listened to you. Date in friend groups. Your friends know who you are, often better than you do when you're in the middle of love. No, she's special. I'm good. And your friends are like, no, he's crazy and you're crazy. If you're thinking that everyone else is wrong and you're right, that's a problem. It's a huge thing. Date in friends groups. It's really easy for your friends to get to know them. You get to know them, what they're really like naturally, all those things. And I'll say this, if you're looking to marry someone and you're maybe engaged with someone or you're looking at marrying this person, can I just tell you this? You are going to marry who that person is today and not the person who you hope they become. If they're unfaithful to you today, if they're rude to you today, if they don't treat you the way you want them to treat them, if they don't do the things you do, and vice versa, if they do all those things and that's what you love about them, that's typically who you're going to marry. Past behavior is a good indicator of future behavior. Your love will not fix them because you will get married and you realize that life slows down and you realize very quickly that this love you had is a buttload of work. And so who you see in front of you today, you need to expect that as the person you're deciding to marry tomorrow. Okay? Let's say you're in a new place. You just arrived to Edmonton. Get involved in a small group. There's this thing called Pro Sports we do every single Monday night, except for tomorrow because it's a long weekend. And they just play sports and hang out. By the way, that's the number one spot that most people in the project meet each other and I marry. It's really interesting. And Johnny, your numbers are going to go way up. And it's been going on for years, and it's like the number one place people connect. Pro Sports, it's really great. You need to connect with it. We also have this thing that we do called YEG Encounter. It's like the best first small group you can be a part of, and that happens, I think it's 2 events a month. It's on Thursday nights, and they do tons of different things. Great way to connect. We got Connecting Point happening the second last week of September. It's huge. There's hundreds of people that come here and sign up for groups, get connected. You got to put yourself out there. Okay, if you're looking to meet people on a Sunday night and build community on a Sunday night, it's not going to happen. You've got to find community. You've got to get involved in other people's lives, okay? Let's go into the third thing, disappointments. A lot of you are coming into this next season with a lot of disappointments. I don't know about you, there's a lot of things I wanted to do in summer I never did. I wanted to be healthier on my holidays. I gained 5 pounds. There's a lot of disappointments. A lot of things we wish we could have done going to the new year. Let me just help you here. Own those disappointments. Whether you were the disappointment or if just things didn't happen, just own it. That's okay. You can't fix it. What's done is done. Find out where in that disappointment where you are the person to blame and own that blame. Ask, why did it happen? And then reassess by asking yourself, what can I learn from this? That's the difference between people who will grow from their mistakes or people who will continue making the same mistakes. Where am I to blame? Why did that happen? And what am I going to do differently? And that's why I say feedback is healthy. Feedback is the best thing you can get. Feedback, having someone tell you where you're at and where you're not at is good. Seek it out. Seek feedback. Ask your friends, how am I doing? Am I a jerk? Am I a good friend? Am I a little weird? All those things. Ask for feedback. Ask your teacher for feedback. Ask mentors for feedback. Ask your dog for feedback. Whatever you got to do, just ask for feedback, yo. Love feedback. Here's why. If you cannot take feedback, it means you got a pride issue. If you got a pride issue, you've got a growing issue. Listen, I've got a lot of holes in my life. My wife reminds me a lot. And I don't do the best job at things. And so I want feedback. Because I've learned when I was a number of years younger, this one thing: always remain a rookie. Rookies are willing to take risks and make mistakes. Rookies are willing to learn from their mistakes. And I always say this: someone who's gifted, and you're in this place right now probably, maybe you're in a work situation, you got this person super gifted, and you're like, not. And they're doing really well, and you're not. And you're having to work for everything. Do you know, over time, I've seen over and over again, and many books will tell you this: the person who is not naturally gifted often outpaces the gifted. Why? Because they had to grind. They were rookies. They learned. They did whatever it took to get there. And so when I took this job on, it took me months to decide to do this. Because I would never ever see myself here. There's days I'm like, how am I paid to do this? I'll keep showing up as long as they pay me. But one thing I've learned when I was younger, I don't care if I don't know how to do it, but someone gives me the opportunity, I'm going to do whatever I can to learn to do it well. And it's something I've just noticed has always opened up more opportunities, and I've been able to do things and go places I've never thought I'd ever go because I've just learned to just grind and figure it out, get better, get feedback, grind it out. If you are naturally gifted at something, don't rely on your gifts for very long. It's almost like, when you're a teenager, you can eat anything, right? And it's like, awesome, I'm going to have 38 hot dogs. And you just eat it, and you in fact lose weight. Yeah, just wait till you hit 30. And it's the same thing. Your gifts will come back to bite you in the arse if you're not careful. And that's why I say this: habits. A lot of you are into resolutions. I'd say this: don't be into resolutions as much as you're into habits. I don't care what goals you have. I don't care. If you don't establish good habits, you'll never reach your goals. Write your goals out. Maybe you've got goals, great goals, but you need to establish what habits are going to get you there. So there's this, Jesus is talking, and he says this, but don't begin until you count the cost. For who would begin construction of a building without first calculating the cost to see if there's enough money to finish it? Otherwise, you might complete only the foundation before running out of money, and then everyone would laugh at you. They would say, there's the person who started that building and couldn't afford to finish it. He literally says this. He's talking about, counting the cost of following Jesus, but he also talks very practically. They understood it. And a lot of people have a lot of goals. They're starting a building without counting the cost. Habits are all about counting the cost. Make them realistic. Try to attain something you can do. If you're like, I'm going to read 78 books by the end of the week, you're going to fail. It's like, I'm going to read one book by the end of October. That's realistic. That's great. If it's not painful, it's not growing you either. Everyone says they want change until they have to change when they don't want to. Real change requires discomfort. Find a habit that pushes you out of your comfort zone just a little bit. There's a 10% rule. So whatever you're doing, what does 10% more look like for you? And allow that to build momentum and do that as long as it pushes you a little bit more. It's also, when it's painful, it's a good way of finding out who you are versus who you really are. We all have a good idea of ourselves until you realize that you're not good at something that you thought you once were. Developing habits is a good way of finding that out. And then next, I got to go through this really fast. Why would you need to change? Here's the reasons why you need to change. You're not getting closer to who you want to be or who you need to be. Others are making it clear that something in your life needs to change, and the results you're getting do not match the expectations that you felt you should be getting. That's a good indication you need to change. And also, if you feel like God has been putting his finger on something in your life and you've been avoiding it, those are good reasons to change. What kind of goals are best? It's the goals that have lasting value. This is spiritual, professional, and personal goals. What's going to give you the most eternal value? Is it purely self-serving? And this is one of the things about the Christian life, is that your life is not to be first self-serving. It's to be other-serving. So how do I get better in order to not only just develop myself, but also develop other people around me? Is it just self-serving? It's not a good goal. Maybe it's a good goal, but it's not the best kind of goal. And thirdly, make sure it's not born out of a sinful desire to feed your ego, selfishness. It's something that's getting you further trapped into something you don't want to be. So what are the 1 to 3 habits that you want to make? Ask yourself, what's going to keep you from them? Who needs to know? Who's going to get me closer to do it? And who's going to get me further away from it? What's your plan tomorrow to accomplish it? What's your plan this week? And what's your plan this month? Break it down. What needs to change in your life, and what can I leverage that's already in my life to make this happen? And how will I celebrate it? So how is it measurable? If you don't, they say this, if you don't celebrate a win, you'll actually not win. You need to celebrate a win. So create a measurable goal. By the end of this week, I want this to happen. If you get it, celebrate it. Find a way to do it. Drag a friend out, watch a movie or do something. But celebrate it, because it actually impacts you and it builds momentum to do something next. Lastly, this verse again. Be careful how you live. This fall, live as someone who's not unwise, but as wise. Someone who sees their decisions as connected to a lot of other decisions and other people. Make the most of every opportunity this fall, because there's a lot of things that are coming against you. So don't be foolish, but understand what God's best is for your life this semester. This is all I got. Hopefully it's helpful, challenging. Hopefully you're not sleeping. And we'll see you next week when we start a new series called If You Want to Screw Up Your Life. Have a great semester, guys. Have a great fall. We'll see you next week.